I created a plugin that allows you to nail the mix of your kick and bass every time. What's up? I'm Jay, also known as The Him. I have over 500 million streams on Spotify, and I've played hundreds of shows all around the world on massive stages like Tomorrowland, Seagate, Lollapalooza, and Ultra. I've released on some of the best labels out there, and I've remixed and collaborated some of the biggest artists out there like Tiesto, Martin Garrix, The Chainsmokers, Mike Williams, and Sam Feld. So this year I started building my own plugins. The first one of those is Sub Ninja, and it's out now. In this video I'm going to show you what it's all about. Sub Ninja is a scope plugin, and it shows you the waveform of the track that's going through it right now. Currently I have it set up so that you see the left and the right channel. This can be handy to see if anything's clipping or what the balance is. What is really nice about Sub Ninja is that it allows you to focus on the bass frequencies. I'm gonna set both waveforms to mid right now, so we just have the mono signals, and I'm gonna turn on the sub view right here. And then this slider will control the frequency of the low pass filter. And you can see as I drag it all the way down, you'll see more and more of the bass. I like to set it up around 100 Hz. This area under 100 Hz is really where all the foundation of the music that you make lies. It's where the fundamentals of your kick drum are and the fundamentals of your bass and sub frequencies. It's very important to be able to know what is going on in that area. And Sub Ninja will show you not only the loudness of everything in balance, but also how long every element is taking. So if I look right here, I can see currently in this track the length of each kick drum, the length of the bass notes in between, and if my sidechain is doing what I want it to do, and just in general the level of the bass. Now let's compare this, for example, to another tool that gets used a lot, the spectrum analyzer. This is one of my favorite EQ plugins. Everything below this little green button is what's under 100 Hz. A spectrum analyzer is great to get a little bit of a feel of the whole balance of a track. We can clearly see that there's not enough detail in a region under 100 Hz. It just kind of bounces up and down and wiggles a little bit. Whereas with the sub view in Sub Ninja, I can actually see how loud all my elements are, how long they are, and how they pulsate over time. This really can give me crucial information as to how my mix in the bass frequencies is doing. And it can be especially handy for people who have small rooms with not the most optimal acoustics, because the sub frequencies can just be very hard to hear. With Sub Ninja on, and this is something I've always had running in the background of my projects, I can just feel very confident that what I'm doing in the bass frequencies is pretty close to being perfect. I do want to briefly mention though that Sub Ninja is a visualization plugin, and like any meter, it's something you're gonna have to get used to. You need to know what good tracks and good bass look like on other tracks that you really like, import those and route them through Sub Ninja to get a feel for what looks right, you know. So let's have a quick look at all the features of Sub Ninja, and after that I'll show you some examples of how I would use it. Over here you got your channel selection, left, right, mid, or side. The side one can be kind of nice to get a little bit of an idea of what stereo information is actually below a certain frequency. You can zoom in to your waveform with Command or Control Scroll, or use your trackpad on your laptop. This is where you turn the sub view on and off. And if you want to have a quick peek at what a certain control does, you can always check here in the bottom left corner, where you'll get some info on whatever your mouse is hovering on at the moment. Up here you set the length of the scope in beats. I currently have it to 4 beats, 1 bar. This is the frequency of the low pass filter. And then this is the sync setting. When it's synced, Sub Ninja will stop updating the waveform as soon as you pause the playback, which can be nice if you want to zoom in or get a good feel of what's going on in detail. But sometimes it's also nice to turn sync off in case you're playing an instrument and you also want to keep routing that through the scope plugin. Then I'll show you some of the more advanced features of Sub Ninja. If you open up the little menu in the top right, you can get some zoom settings, and you can turn on the extra wave info, which will show you, if you zoom in far enough, the frequencies and the note names of the current cycle. It's nice to pause it. And then if you zoom in far enough, you'll get the details of every cycle between the 0 crossings. And then we'll go to the little warning slider over here, which will give you a little warning as soon as the frequency goes below this number. So let's set it up to 40 Hertz. Then we can, for example, see if one cycle is going below that 40. So this 35 is just below that. And it can be handy to know if you want to just get a little hint of, hey, maybe I'm going too low and I need to cut some of those lows out and not waste any energy in your mix. Okay, so let's have a quick look at some use cases right now. For example, I just want to show you, like, if we skip through some masters here, we've been listening to this one already, kind of a deep housey track. You can see there's a good balance between the sub frequencies, the bass frequencies, and the kick. Not too crazy. The kick is not super long, not longer than half the beat. And the bass is not overpowering the kick. If you compare that, for example, with a more EDM-y track, then you can definitely see like the bass is more pumped up. You know, the difference between the levels of the bass and the kick drum are closer together. So that means there's more compression going on in the bass and sub frequencies and makes it a bit more aggressive. This would be another kind of deep housey track where maybe it's slightly more big room actually, and where the balance between the kick and the bass is still kind of gelled together, but the kick drums are also not super loud. And lastly, maybe just something that's not housey at all, where you can clearly see like heavy kind of 808 kicks and breathable space between those hits that give you more room. Again, Sub Ninja allowed me while mixing these tracks, like just to see where the bass should sit according to the levels of the kick, for example, and what is about right. And you know, like it's kind of like a Dada Life has said about bass that it, or like tracks that it should look like a sausage, and that's why they made the sausage fattener. And I find that like if you have a good bass, that it usually tends to look kind of like a sausage as well, maybe a little bit less extreme, but still. So maybe it's cool right now to look at a potential problem that you could see in Sub Ninja and prevent that from ever happening to you. Say, for example, you had a really low frequency. I've just set up a sine wave in Serum here, and if we zoomed in, we could actually see that it's an A1 playing, about 14 Hertz, just under. And that's super low. Like, I don't even hear this sound in my speakers, and I have pretty good monitor speakers, but it's just too low, you know, it's kind of like rumble. So if we add that signal to our original master track, this is what it looked like. But then if we unmute that track, we can right away clearly see that there's some stuff going on in the sub waveform. And this would just, if I saw this on a track I was working on, alert me right away, like what is going on. And if we actually had the warning set to 40 Hertz, it would also start showing up and saying like, hey man, there's like something probably not completely right in here. Okay, so let's have a quick look at a project that I worked on and that I later on found out that there's quite a low sub note in. If you check this one out, and then everything kind of looks fine, but if I actually turn that warning frequency on, set it to 40 Hertz, we could actually see that one of the bass notes in the loop, this one, is going too low. And that's actually correct. This is the C sharp. And we could see that those frequencies here are like around the, 33 Hertz mark. And that might be something we want to change. It might be totally fine, you know, but you might think, hey, I want this to work really well on smaller speakers, so this is actually where I will jump up an octave and no longer have that problem. And that's again something that it's a little bit of a combination between mixing and producing, but you know ahead of time that this is a low frequency that you might want to work on and just bump the octave for the bass, or maybe just for the sub bass. And then another thing that could be interesting to note about this track is that the kicks are actually a little bit longer and not super compressed. And we might actually decide that that tail of the kick that's kind of extending here into the bass, we don't necessarily need. You know, this bass pattern is kind of an offbeat bass pattern, classic trancey thing, that we might just want to keep that moment for just the bass so they don't overlap. Maybe that's actually, that ending we don't really need. So let's chop some of that sample off and just make our track a little bit tighter so that the kick doesn't overlap with the bass anymore. And perhaps we also want to have a little bit more compression on there. Again, Sub Ninja will help us out greatly just to see right away what the compression is doing to our bass levels and how that's making everything gel together a little bit more. So this would be with compression, and without compression we actually had a bit of a less tight bass end. And so it would be more of that sausage perhaps. I'm not saying this is right, but you get the feel for it. Thank you so much for checking out my video about Sub Ninja. If you have any questions or feedback, please reach out to me at TheHim on Instagram and Twitter, and dsp@thehim.com if you want to send me an email. I really look forward to your feedback. There's a free trial on the website, and you can buy it at dsp.thehim.com. Bye!